Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. Today, SYARAH SYAFIQAH binti MUDA, NURUL FATIHA binti KHAI RONIZAM, Muhammad IZZAT MIRZA bin ZULKEEFLI, and I, AMIR SYAKIR bin AMALI, will talk about the evolution of pteridophytes. I guess most of you know what evolution is. However, do you know what is pteridophyte? So, let us take a look at the introduction. Welcome back to Bio TV. We will now present the topic of the evolution of pteridophytes. This subtopic is found in chapter 23, Plant Evolution and Diversity from the MUDA textbook. Before we begin our presentation, let's see what the learning outcomes of this subtopic are. Upon completion of this section, we should be able to identify 3 types of pteridophytes. Next, compare and contrast microphytes and megaphytes, and lastly, we should also be able to identify the components of the fun's life cycle. For the presentation flow, first, we will tell you what is the meaning of pteridophytes. Second, the differences between megaphytes and microphytes. Next, hostels, with ferns, and lastly, is the fun's life cycle. So, basically, what are pteridophytes? Pteridophytes is a broad term used to describe the group of seedless vascular plants that includes ferns and their allies, the hostels and with ferns. Both pteridophytes and seed plants have megaphytes, which are the broad leaves with several strands of vascular tissue.
So now let's move with the difference between microphyte and megaphyte. For the first one, the number of vascular tissue. In microphyte, it has a single strand of vascular tissue and it's quite narrow. In the megaphyte, it has several branches of vascular tissue and are broader. For the second one, it is a number of veins. In microphyte, it is a single vein which is unbranched. For the megaphyte, it has a multiple vein. For the location of microphyte, it occurs in isophytes and hostel. For the location of megaphyte, it occurs in angiosperms, gymnosperms, and fronts of sperms. And the function of microphyte, it undergoes photosynthesis. Meanwhile, for the megaphyte, it allows plants to efficiently collect solar energy, leading to the production of more food. And the last one is possibility of producing more offspring than plants without megaphytes. So the diagram shows the example of the difference between megaphyte and microphytes. So the first one is the hostel. Hostel consists of one genus, Equester, and approximately 15 species of distinct seedless vascular plants. Most hostels inhabit wet, marshy environment around the globe. About 300 million years ago, hostels were dominant plants and grew as large as modern trees. Hostels have a rhizome that produce hollow, ribbed stems and reach a height of 1.3 meter. It can be branched or unbranched with leaves. The skirt-like, slender, green-sided branch make plant bare and a resemblance to a hostel. Many hostels have a turbidity at the tips of all stems. The spores germinate into inconspicuous and independent gametophytes. Equester spores are sensitive to humidity and are spring-loaded. When conditions are right, the spores have been known to be ejected and travel upward of 2 miles in an hour. The stems are tough and rigid because silica deposit in cell wall.
So now, we move to the next type of pteridophytes, which is with ferns. It represented by genera Xylothym and Mesipteris, which are native to tropical and subtropical regions. As we can see, Xylothym has no leaves, So, where the photosynthesis process could happen? Actually, the photosynthesis process is carried on by the branches. That's why xylotherm species resemble a whisk broom. A horizontal rhizomes gives rise to above-ground stems that repeatedly fork. On short side branches, the pumpkin-shaped sporangia are born. And lastly, for your information, 2 or 3 species of massive trees have appendages that some maintain are reduced megaphylls.
What is fern? Ferns are an ancient group of vascular plants. They were once the dominant group of plants in our forests, but are now outcompeted by the more advanced gymnosperms and angiosperms. They are a widespread group of plants, around 11,000 species that are well known for their attractiveness. The ferns do not produce seeds, wood or flowers. They reproduce using spores and are pollinated and dispersed by wind. The ferns are split into 2 subdivisions, Xylophytina and Polypodiophyta. Xylophytina includes roughly 80 species of whisk ferns and adder's tongue ferns. Polypodiophyta contains all the remaining species such as the modern ferns, primitive ferns and hostels. Next, the ferns are also well adapted to a wide range of environmental conditions and can be found in a number of different habitats. The ferns are most abundant in warm, moist tropical regions, but they can also be found in temperate regions and as far north as the Arctic Circle. Several species live in dry, rocky places, whereas others have adapted to an aquatic life. Their spores are very lightweight and so they can be blown extreme distances by the wind. For the size of the ferns range in size from tiny aquatic species less than 1 cm in diameter to modern giant tropical tree ferns that exceed 20 meter in height. The characteristics of ferns: unlike lycophytes, ferns have megaphylls, which are more commonly referred to as fronds. The leatherleaf fern used in flower arrangements as fronds that are broad, with subdivided leaflets. Those of a tree fern can be about 1.4 meters long, and those of the hard-tongued fern are also strap-like and leathery. Sporangia are often located in clusters, called sori, and the underside of the fronds where they may be shielded by thin protective structures called indusia.
So guys, what is the importance of ferns to humans? First, ferns have much economic value and are frequently used by florists in decorative bouquets and as ornamental plants in the home and garden. Next, wood from tropical tree ferns is often used as a building material because it resists decay, particularly by termites. So next, ferns, especially the ostrich fern, are used as food in the northeastern United States. Many restaurants feature fiddleheads, which that season's first growth, as a special treat, and edible fern crosiers, which is young leaves with coiled hook-shaped tips, are popular in some areas. Apart from that, a major value of ferns is in biological research, for they have retained a primitive life cycle involving 2 separate and more or less independent generations, or growth phases,
the plants of which are wholly different in many respects. Ferns also have medicinal value. Many Native Americans use them as an astringent during childbirth to stop bleeding. And the maidenhair fern is the source of a cold medicine. And lastly, water ferns, there is genus Ceratopteris, which have relatively short life cycles and for which many mutations have been characterized, have become model organism for genetics teaching and research.
Here we come to the last section of this topic, fern life cycle. Fern life cycle consists of 7 phases, which is the sporophyte, the sporangia, the spores, the gametophyte, the fertilization, the zygotes, and the last one is the fronds. Let's take a look on the first phase. The first phase is the sporophyte. The sporophyte portion in life cycle is dominant in fern. I give you the main idea. The sporophyte is developed between haploid egg cell and haploid sperm cell. The next phase is the sporangia. The sporangium located within the sorus and under the leaflets. Sporangium also protected by thin and protective structure called indicium. This is the picture of sporangium. The third phase of fern life cycle is the spores. Within the sporangium, meiosis will occur and the spores are produced. So when the sporangium opens, the spores are released. By this you know where the spores will go. The spores will distribute by the wind or animal like bee or flies. So we move to the next phase, which is the gametophyte. A spore will germinate into a protellus, which consists of 2 main parts, which is the archegonium and the antheridium. Archegonium located at the top of the protellus, while antheridium located at the bottom of the protellus between the rhizoids. The next phase is the fertilization. The fertilization must occur in a moisture base. It is because it helps the sperm to swim in a film of water from antheridium to the egg within the archegonium. Phase of fern life cycle is the zygote. The zygote will undergo mitosis process to develop young sporophyte or gametophyte. Zygotes will begin its development inside an archegonium. First leaf will appear above the protellus, while the roots will appear below the protellus. The last phase of fern life cycle is the fronds. Basically, in the fronds, the sporophyte will develop a root-bearing rhizomes. The function of rhizome is to produce root that will help to absorb water and nutrients. Did you notice the small structure there? We call it feather head. Feather head is the young fronds of young fern. That's all about fern life cycle.
So at the end of this topic, we can conclude that we can identify 3 types of pteridophyte, which is horsetail, fish ferns, and ferns. We can also know the difference between megaphyll and microphyll, which is slightly different, which is the number of vascular tissue, the number of wing, location, and the last one is functions. And the last one is we can identify the component of the fern's life cycle, which is through the spores that are produced within sporangium after the meiosis occurs.